It was announced today that Remedy is developing Control 2. This was just announced this week. Control 1 went on to sell about 2 million copies, which Remedy themselves says it's not a big hit, but they were happy with the sales. They were also happy with the awards they got, but it wasn't a big seller to them. But they are going ahead with a second Control anyway. Zero, how do you feel about Control, the Control sequel being announced and in development right now? Along with, are they doing Alan Wake 2 as well in there?
Yeah, I think they are doing Alan Wake 2, though Alan Wake 2, there is a bit of concern that just because of the fact that the Alan Wake 1 remake didn't sell as well as they were hoping.
Right.
So that's kind of a problem that's got its own issues too. It's interesting to see that they signed on with 505 Games, especially considering that 505 Games really botched the whole next gen upgrade for Control. That kind of burned a lot of people who bought the Ultimate Edition version of the game on PS4 and Xbox One. Hey, I'm all for more Control because I kind of like the wild and wacky SCP Files vibe that they were going for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just it'll be interesting to see if they end up having some serious talks with 505 Games on how to manage expectations and things, because yeah, I just remember just how bad the fallout was in the short term with the ninth gen upgrades, because yeah, just there were some people who were just outright pissed.
Yeah, I understand, because that was a screwed up situation. I think it's interesting that they're doing a sequel to this game. I thought I overheard that this was part of the Alan Wake franchise to a certain. I thought I heard that. I might be wrong. I'll correct.
It's got some lore beats that sort of touch to the Alan Wake universe, but I don't think it is 100%. Hey, this is 100% part of the Alan Wake universe and everything.
I think the problem with Control, in a sense, is that it got great reviews. It got fantastic reviews on PC. And around the time, too, when ray tracing was starting to pick up. I think ray tracing was just starting with Control, right? It was the game that if you had a ray tracing graphics card that you play, because you want to see how ray tracing looks.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was the game that both NVIDIA and AMD had advertised that it had some interactions with their technologies, I think.
Okay.
AMD had advertised that it was one of the games that used some of the hair effects technology. So just you had some like detailed animations on like some of the physics works and stuff like that. And then of course NVIDIA was advertising the ray tracing piece of, hey, check out the sweet ray tracing and stuff like that.
Okay. I think this will probably sell better than Control 1, because they are now going to make the game with ray tracing enabled on all consoles. And the unfortunate problem is, especially with you PC Master Race people, is that games just sell more on console. And when it started going out that the console versions of the game was essentially borked, people didn't buy it, and people didn't play it as much. So, and as quality as the game is, if it's not running well on the consoles, it's just not going to sell. I don't care how many people have PCs. You would have to have a beefy PC to play it anyway. So if it's not running on consoles very well, it wasn't going to sell very well. And I think 2 million for what it was is pretty damn good. So I think if the quality of the game stays the same from what it was on 1, or maybe a little bit better, I think it will sell double the amount that Control 1 did. I think that's more than reasonable to think. I think a lot of people did want to play it, but didn't have the PC to play it. And then once the Ultimate Edition came out on other consoles, other games were more interesting, and Control was just too old at the time, and that's really it. You couldn't do much of anything. Remedy hasn't really had that big of a lot of hits recently, have they? I mean, didn't Remedy also do Quantum Break, which did not do very well?
Yeah, so that was another game that um, had an interesting premise, and I think what made it also interesting was the fact that it had kind of like a TV show element to it, where some of the chapters would be interspersed up with kind of like a TV show episode showing like because you chose path A or path B, you would get like this particular video episode of just like real life actors like acting out just what happened because of the choices you made. So super interesting premise, but again, it just wasn't a real big seller because of just the fact that at the time, Quantum Break was exclusively a Xbox One thing.
Yeah.
And of course, this was early in the Xbox One's lifespan. And unfortunately, it didn't really get to escape the poor reputation of, oh, you have to register your discs online and everything, even though they clarified it before launch. Hey, we're not doing that thing anymore. We learned our lesson, fucked up. We're not going to do that whole thing anymore. But the reputational damage was done, so unfortunately, just since the damage was done, just it was one game that looked cool, but people didn't give it a chance because at the time it was an Xbox exclusive. I think eventually it ended up getting a PC version, and then you got like a cross buy sort of deal that would later happen. So
Hmm.
so there was that, but yeah, just unfortunately that was a game that was kind of a victim of just the poor reputation of the Xbox brand at the time. So
Yeah.
just that was that. But yeah, unfortunately, just they've some great games that just really didn't pay off, and then you have some games that they partnered up on, and either the game reputation was just bad or just plain terrible. Most recently, they did a partnership with um, I forget which Korean video game studio it was, but it was for the free to play first person shooter Crossfire X that was coming out to both Xbox and PC for the West, with Microsoft helping with the localization and everything. Remedy was actually hired to do the single player campaign for Crossfire X,
Oh
and
yeah.
unfortunately, that was a really bad single player campaign,
Yeah.
and it had its share of problems. And unfortunately, just I think critically, it got panned. So yeah, just they haven't been and just batting a great record for the last couple of years. And while Control has sold pretty well, just with just kind of all the weirdness behind it, it didn't sell like complete gangbusters or anything.
Is Remedy in is Remedy at risk if their games start to not sell very well? Like if Control 2 isn't a massive hit, are they at risk of being sold? I know that they do contracts with Microsoft, with Rockstar, and now with Tencent, or with Epic Games, I should say. They are doing partnerships with those. They're doing a partnership with Rockstar to remake Max Payne 1 and 2, and they're doing and they have a 2-game deal with Epic Games to do their new games exclusively with them. If they start not selling a lot, is there a chance that this company gets sold?
Possibly, especially since some of their IPs are quite valuable, especially just Control. I would say if they do get put at risk of being sold and everything, I would imagine just Microsoft would want to be first in line to just get their hands on the Control IP. But that's my speculation, and it's a moonshot level of speculation too. So for anyone who kind of want frame of reference what I mean by moonshot, we're talking if hell freezes over and pigs fly sort
Yeah.
of chances.
Is Control an important IP for them? Because it only
Well-
sold 2 million, and it did get awards, but even that is not indicative of something that's a valuable property. That's more
Well,
of a boutique property.
The reason I say it's important is because Microsoft went so hard on the marketing when the Series X consoles came out, with purchasing tons and tons of ads for Control running on Series X, going, "Hey, Series X has some great games. Look at Control. Look at how awesome this game is." It was constantly in the limelight for a lot of the Xbox Series X advertising. So that's my thought process on the whole thing.
To me, their important games are games that essentially other people own. I mean, Max Payne, I think, is the example that I would give. I think that's their most important game, but somebody already owns them. I think Rockstar owns that game.
They sold the rights to Rockstar.
Yeah, so I think they're kind of in trouble right now. I mean, they may not be in financial trouble. They might have enough money to actually, to do what they need to do. But how long are they going to get the money when their games aren't selling very well? I mean, they can be beautiful looking and they may run well, but if they're not selling, I don't see people wanting to put more money into this company unless they start doing things that actually sells. So I think Control 2 might just be a make or break thing. And if they don't sell really well in the next time, I can see them in a potential buying bid for either Microsoft, Sony, Rockstar, Take-Two, or something along those lines to purchase them outright, or they might get embraced. Who knows? So
Yeah.
this might be an important one for them that they would have to get right. Because if they don't, I can see some problems brewing ahead. Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games Podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.